As Lead Belly and Woody Guthrie were introducing folk music to mainstream America, a new musical revolution was brewing in the South. It was based on the old acoustic string band sound of the 1920s, but souped up and played at breakneck tempo and in difficult keys. Alan Lomax called it folk music in overdrive, but most fans of the music called it by the name given to it by its founder, Kentuckian Bill Monroe, bluegrass.
One day I was at this discount fire sale place on the edge of Philadelphia, Mississippi, and for 75 cents, I believe it was, I bought a scratched up 78 by Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Quartet called Wicked Path of Sin. Took it home, I went, whoa, this is deep. It was purely American, and a point of view and a way of life, like it or leave it, it was his. And he was a teacher, he was a philosopher, and he was a natural man and a soul man.
Bill Monroe was a quiet man. He was very cross-eyed when he was born and was very shy, would hide behind his dad, when they would go to town, didn't ever want anyone to to see him like that. I think his brothers was kind of ashamed of him because he was like the town, ugly kid, and that, I'm sure that hurt him.
My brothers, they all went to the singing school in the church. But there was no use me going because I couldn't see the notes or anything, you see, and they couldn't learn me anything. So I just decided that I would learn my music by ear and always do it that way.
His father passed away when he was young. His mother died when he was young. His older brothers left and went to Indiana for work. He was always being left behind, always being abandoned, so to speak. And so I think that affected his life forever.
Bill Monroe was an extraordinary musician and personality, a musical force. And what set him apart from the music that existed before that was the drive of his music, the drive of his personality. And the drive is not only rhythmic, but it's also a melodic drive, what's called the high lonesome sound.
In the 30s, Bill began singing with his brother Charlie, but they soon split up.
But after he and Charlie went their separate ways, Bill wanted to develop a band with its own sound, and for several years he experimented with a driving kind of country music that married elements of blues and the rural music together.
There was a black guy that played music that really influenced my father in the blues part of it, and his name was Arnold Schultz was his name. And my father said that he'd taken time out with him to show him things on the guitar, and he got to hear that man play blues, that he loved that, and he started adding that to his music later on.
Bill Monroe wanted his group, the Bluegrass Boys, to sound different than other string bands that dominated country music in the early 40s. Eventually, he hired another lead singer, Lester Flatt. But bluegrass wasn't born until Earl Scruggs, and his accelerated three-finger banjo technique was added to the mix in 1946.
Lester and I participated in making Bill's group sound a certain way. I came here actually with another group called Lost John and his allied Kentuckians. Short time after then, John decided to get off the road, so up in the morning, Bill came to the Tulane Hotel, and I played him two tunes, Sally Gooden and Dear Old Dixie. And he said, come down to the opera tonight. And so that's how I got hired with Bill Monroe.
When he came with that three-fingered style, banjo players just didn't play with fire like Earl Scruggs did. that happened, everything flew loose. I mean, it was unbelievable, the response that Bill Monroe got at the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, it was nonstop screaming when they came out. You know, Earl would take a solo, Monroe would take a solo right behind him, and I mean, it was just this competition thing, you know, and it was great for the music because it allowed it to evolve.
Scruggs brought something that was purely new, and he revolutionized a comedic instrument called the banjo, kind of a minstrel instrument.
To me, as to many other people, that was a revolutionary thing in banjo playing, son. So other people had done it, but not as aptly as Earl did.
Earl put it into a package that was so just stunning. You know, he just made it into the sound we're used to. Nobody was doing that before. All those things that he came up with, and he came up with a whole vocabulary of idiomatic banjo stuff that is, created the book for every banjo player to follow who played in the three-finger style.
Back then, I was going to leave. Bill was traveling so much, I was getting a little bit tired of. During that time, Lester decided he's going to quit too. So when I walked out from the Opry that night, Lester turned in his notice. A few days after that, Lester gave me a call and he said, we both might get unhappy going back into the factory after enjoying the music so much. So that's when we decided to give it a try and making a living with our own group.
I stand on the corner with a low-down blues, a great big hole in the bottom of the shoe. Honey, let me be your soldier. Let me be your soldier dog, or I will be your man dog. Honey, let me be your soldier.
For several years, Bill Monroe tried to prevent Flatt and Scruggs from joining the Grand Ole Opry. Eventually, an important sponsor, Martha White Flower, who had been having success with Flatt and Scruggs on an early Virginia-based television show, intervened.
Martha White was a huge sponsor of the Grand Ole Opry, WSM. And it was like, look, they're our boys. Flatt and Scruggs, they're the boys, you know, and we're going to stand by them. And if they're not members, we're pulling our advertisement. So it was like, okay.
He soon mellowed down to where it wasn't upsetting him that bad.
Thank you. I took my banjo apart for you. Shake his hand.
Can I shake hands with you? Put 2 GHUM on there and I'll act like I know you.
Bluegrass music that started in the 40s has prospered well through to the present day, in part due to the expanded fan base established by Flatt and Scruggs. They became an important part of the folk revival in the early 60s, made regular appearances on the hit TV show The Beverly Hillbillies, and their music was used in Hollywood film classic Bonnie and Clyde.
We had recorded everything that we ever knew and could get our hands on, and was getting back into re-recording stuff that we had recorded earlier. I got to playing with my boys there at our house. They'd have friends who'd come in, so we'd have picking sessions, and out of the whole thing, I just got so eager to do something else until Lester and I just went our separate ways with our music.
Although Flatt and Scruggs eventually split up in 1969, Earl Scruggs continues to pioneer new uses of the banjo.
I always felt there's no reason to hold the instrument back. If it'd work in a band, let it go. So I went with that feeling and never been sorry about it.
Thank y'all very much. Thank you.